Hey, wait a minute. That's not Mark Rogers. Who is that guy? Hello, here at the Voice of College Football. Matt Zemek of the USC show with Ethan Inman and Crash Collier. Pinch hitting for Mark tonight. So I'm over on the USC channel Tuesdays at this time, and also Sundays for post-game shows at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. But tonight, I'm filling in for Mark. I mean, you know he's been carrying a very heavy load doing all these shows, need a little break. So I'm in here, happy to take your calls, happy to field your questions, comments. There's obviously a ton to talk about. So not going to be hard to generate a conversation or two tonight here at the Voice of College Football. Obviously, just to start off, a reminder that you go to vocfb.com/shop, all sorts of nice items, merchandise, caps, t-shirts, the works. Just look around, vocfb.com/shop. Your purchases help the Voice of College Football. And in the chat, Mark has the top 25 that actually makes sense, the best top 25 in the business. I always call it the industry standard from Mark Rogers. That's why he is who he is. That's why you love the Voice of College Football. It's college football analysis that actually makes sense. Mark Rogers' top 25. So be sure to check that out here at the Voice of College Football. So plenty going on. Where do we start? I think we need to go with the breaking news today, right? James Franklin to Virginia Tech. So before I assess that move, let's just go through the coaching carousel a little bit, right? Because this is going to be a wild carousel. It's going to be spinning at rapid speed in a few weeks when teams' regular seasons end and coaches can officially, formally interview for jobs. Now, we all know the back channel conversations with the agents are going on right now, and there is so much smoke coming out of Oxford and Gainesville, Lane Kiffin, and the drama there. And Ole Miss wants to wrap them up, lock them down, and so a lot of heavy speculation that Florida's kind of lining it all up and has the inside track. No done deals, no guarantees, but lots of intrigue, lots of soap operatic doings behind the scenes. So the coaching carousel's hot. And so James Franklin to Virginia Tech, I mean, that means James Franklin's not going to the SEC. James Franklin not going to Arkansas. I know Arkansas people were wondering, is this going to be the move? Is this going to be the guy? What about Auburn, right? Because Franklin coached at Vanderbilt, so he knows the SEC landscape. Would he come back to the conference? So that plot point, that's off the board. And so Franklin does go to Virginia Tech. How is this going to affect the market? I think that in terms of the carousel, one of the key pivot points, the key pivotal figures, is Brent Key of Georgia Tech. Now, I would be inclined to think, this is just an inclination. It's not a prediction. It's an inclination where I'm leaning at this point. And we all have our leanings, right? Sometimes we have no clue. Sometimes I have no clue. A lot of people know that already. But my inclination is Brent Key wants to stay in Atlanta, stay on the flats, and be the guy there. And you look at Curt Cignetti, why wouldn't you want to be your own local version of Curt Cignetti? You take over a program that hasn't done a whole lot recently, and you get to be the king in that locality at that program. You never have to buy a meal or a drink in that place. Curt Cignetti, he's never going to have to pay for a meal or a drink in Bloomington ever again. Why not live that life instead of going to a Penn State, instead of going to a place where the scrutiny and the expectations are going to be so much higher, bigger, more suffocating? Why not just enjoy life at the smaller program, or not necessarily smaller, but the less established program? Build your kingdom, build your fortress, your castle right there, instead of thinking that you have to go to the blue blood, the brand name, the label on the soup can. Off-brand applesauce could taste just as good as Mott's or whatever other favorite brand of applesauce, right? It costs less. It's less of a hassle. Why do you have to get the top brand when the off-brand can be just as good, but for less money, right? It's a better deal. So Brent Key has that decision to make. And I think if I'm the AD at Arkansas, the AD at Auburn, not necessarily saying Brent Key is my number one guy, but would make a lot of sense as a target, because Brent Key, we know this, at Georgia Tech, he wins big games. He gets his team up for the big games. So that has to be appealing from an SEC standpoint. And he gets his teams to play physical football. Now, the concerning part is Georgia Tech's defense. Looking at that, like that might scare me off. But, you know, you take Brent Key and his talent, his coaching talent, you take him from Georgia Tech to the SEC, you know, you can make a case. You can make a really solid case for Brent Key. So that's just one name to watch. Like, I can't go through the whole Rolodex, the whole deck of cards here. So many plot points. Like, what if Lane Kiffin does leave Ole Miss? Then you're going to have Arkansas and Auburn and Ole Miss all open. And, like, what happens in that jumble? And then we still haven't gotten to, you know, Florida State with Mike Norvell. Is he going to be fired there? So many things to process, so many things to go through in terms of the coaching carousel, and there's going to be a lot of spins of the wheel. So wanted to hit on that. Also, UCLA, one name that's coming up for UCLA, because I do follow the Bruins fairly closely, is Bob Chesney. Who's Bob Chesney? He's the coach at Madison. And when you look at the very simple story about Bob Chesney and James Madison, is that, you know, Curt Cignetti came from James Madison, right? So if you want to get the next Curt Cignetti, well, why wouldn't you go to James Madison? By the way, I just posted the YouTube link to the show in the chat. Some people wanted me to do that, so that's done. But, you know, if you want the next Cignetti, if you want to kind of follow that blueprint path, well, you get his successor who has done a good job. And James Madison, not completely out of the Group of Five championship hunt. So that is part of the situation for UCLA with Bob Chesney. Like, that could be a really attractive hire for UCLA. And, you know, some speculation that he might be thinking about Penn State. That comes from Rick Neuheisel, a guy who's kind of plugged in to UCLA. So, you know, lots to consider in terms of Bob Chesney and where he's going to go, because he's going to be a very attractive candidate, and people are going to look at just, hey, Curt Cignetti went from James Madison to Indiana. He did what he did. And so now Bob Chesney could fill that same role. So lots to consider. And we have people calling in. That's great. So let me just hit James Franklin, Virginia Tech. Like, I think solid move for Virginia Tech, right? Virginia Tech's been in the wilderness past decade. You know, ever since Frank Beamer stepped down, they haven't found the guy. Justin Fuente didn't work out. Brent Pry didn't work out. So James Franklin, like, you know, known program builder. He does know how to do this. He knows how to build a structure. He knows how to generate consistency. You know, he didn't win national championships, but like Penn State was a regular 10-win program. And so, you know, so like Virginia Tech's not taking this wild gamble, right? This is like a solid, proven hire for a program that's, you know, drifted into the middle to lower tiers of the ACC. I think pretty good landing spot, right? Like I'm thinking James Franklin should be able to win 9 games per season in this ACC, an ACC where so many teams are struggling, including Florida State, including Clemson. You know, Dabo's lost his fastball. And you know, you see the jumble at the top of the standings, and like Virginia could play in the conference championship game. I mean, this is a weak ACC. And so if James Franklin can't win 9 per season, more or less, at Virginia Tech, I'll be a little bit surprised. So I think it's definitely a good move for Virginia Tech. All right, going to get to your calls now. Hey, I'll be here for 2 hours. You're going to get at least 75 minutes out of me. So I'm definitely here. until 11:15 in the East, 8:15 in the West. If you want the full 2 hours or more, $150 in super chats. That's the arrangement, but I'm definitely here until 11:15 in the East. All right, taking your calls and comments. The real MVP. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you, Matt?
All right, it's the most wonderful time of the year, and let me just say before you tell me what's on your mind, the real MVP. What an awesome Saturday of football! Like, it wasn't October 15th, 2005, but it was pretty damn fun. There was great morning window, mid-afternoon window, night window. Great mid-November Saturday of college football.
Yeah, it was a good day. I wish it was the day of almost upsets. Like, it would have been crazy if Florida would have been over the top and beat Ole Miss, or South Carolina kept their upset and somehow didn't blow a 27-point lead at halftime. You know, it feels like we're going to look back and be like, this is the week that really could have shaken up the college football season. But hey, that's what makes it fun. Any given week, anybody can beat anybody outside of the few elite teams in the sport. You know, it's such a crazy sport. James Franklin got hired, and we got playoff games going to be happening in like a month. I mean, what other sport on earth does that happen?
But just the craziness is the charm. It's the attraction point, no question.
Yeah, I know. Matt, there's going to be a lot of chaos this year in the rankings, in the college football rankings. I know you're a smart man. I'm sure you looked into it, and you know a lot about math. And to me, it's looking like a 10-2 team is almost assuredly going to be left out of the college football playoff. I don't know if it's Michigan, USC, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. I don't know which team it is, but somebody's going to be 10-2, and somebody's going to be left out because there's just not enough spots.
That seems to be the way it's going, but of course, you know, some teams have to hold their positions in order for that to happen, and so you could have a team that has 2 losses gets bumped off and goes to 3, but you're probably right. I think they're probably going to be. It's going to be musical chairs, and someone's still going to be left standing without a seat. That's probably where we're going. You know, I follow USC, and so like if USC beats Oregon, I don't think it's going to happen. But if USC beats Oregon, then both of those teams are 10-2. And is there enough room for 4 Big Ten teams in this party? With, you know, the SEC very possibly having 5 teams, that's going to get really crowded. And of course, Notre Dame likely to be 10-2, but not with the tremendous schedule. You've talked about that. Like, the resumes doesn't glisten for Notre Dame. So right now, the real MVP, it's more likely than not that yes, a 10-2 team is going to get left out. Like, we haven't even mentioned the group of 5. So, like, you know, a 10-2
Tulane, North Texas.
I mean, there's an automatic one. Yeah, there's an automatic bid, but there could be another 10-2 team from the group of 5 that gets left out for sure. So more than likely, you're right. Like, I would, if you're saying like this is the bet, you know, are you going for it or against it? I'd be with your bet. I'd share that bet that you're making.
Right, and it's so interesting because when you talk to each individual fan base, they are absolutely certain their team at 10-2 is going to be in the college football playoff. Like, John was hosting, John Yanamo from the Michigan channel. He's like, there's no way a 10-2 Michigan's left out if they beat Ohio State. And I'm like, hey, listen, they're only 64% chance to make it, according to ESPN last week, if they were to beat Ohio State. Okay, so I'm not saying they get left out if they beat Ohio State, but they're not a lock either. USC, it's going to be, like, in terms of the Big Ten race, if they beat Oregon, you would have hoped that the committee would honor the head-to-head result. And since they've beaten both Michigan and Oregon, and they both all have the same record, that they would be the 3rd team in the Big Ten that's selected. That's what I would do, and that's what the committee should do. We also have Miami, who all of a sudden seems like they've got a halfway decent football team. They absolutely clobbered NC State. I know the committee ranked them low because of their recent performance. Well, they beat NC State more than Notre Dame did, and they also beat Notre Dame head-to-head on the football field. So is Miami going to jump Notre Dame this week? And I wanted to ask you, since you're a smart guy, why is Alabama basically in every poll I see ranked behind Notre Dame right now. Like, what resume data point does Alabama have that is worse than Notre Dame?
The loss to Florida State, right? I mean, we can debate whether it should be, but that is the reason.
Okay, so that one loss is worth more than beating the number 4-6 team in the country, and then needing another top 15 team in Vanderbilt. I just want to make sure I got this right.
Well, like Derail MVP, like the committee's tendency, like the good loss versus the bad loss, and like the committee seems to reward the good loss, but you lose to the wrong team, that can take you down. Now, I'm not saying whether I agree with it, but I am saying like that's what's getting the weight in the room. In Florida State, we didn't think Florida State was going to be bad, especially after week 1, but Florida State's been bad. So
they're recovering. They're 5-5. They're not atrocious, but they are a bad football team. This James Franklin hire at Virginia Tech, this is a grand slam hire. Like, for Virginia Tech, they've got immediately the second best coach in the ACC, behind Mario Cristobal, I would say. They're going to have one of the 3 or 4 best rosters just because James Franklin name, prestige, and winning will automatically upgrade their talent level above, your Louisville, Virginia, those crappy ACC teams. And I expect Virginia Tech, as strange it is, to be competing for the college football playoffs within the next 2 or 3 years. And I think this is going to be great for James Franklin because he's already proven in a much harder place in Vanderbilt that he can succeed at this level of institution. So I don't see how this doesn't work out for Virginia Tech and James Franklin.
I fully agree. I would only say, and again, like I like this hire. I approve of this hire unambiguously, but like most of us, myself included, thought Lincoln Riley was going to be good at USC and Luke Fickell was going to be good at Wisconsin. And
that's true.
Like slam dunk hires on paper have not worked out. I still like the hire. I'm not questioning your logic because your logic is airtight. But it's just worth noting that the things that just look so good haven't turned out as consistently as one might think or expect. It'll be fascinating to see.
Yeah, how Luke Fickell is able to keep his job at Wisconsin after the year he's turned out is beyond, like, I have no words for it because bad Graham and their schedule is the hardest schedule maybe in all of college football. They're just a bad team because they were struggling against MAC level competition to start off the year. They're non-competitive against most of these teams that they're playing. I know they're playing mostly elite teams, but still, you got to be competitive occasionally every once in a while. Do you think?
Let me just say before you continue. Let me just say, like, remember Barry Alvarez's and Brett Bielema's Wisconsin teams, like Darrell Bevel and Scott Tolzien? They weren't great quarterbacks, but compared to what Wisconsin's had the past several seasons, like they look like Johnny freaking Unitas, Charlie Ward, Jim Plunkett. Like, come on, like how hard can it be in the Big Ten to get a half decent quarterback to Madison? Come on now. And then
they've been struggling with
the other part of that is why is Wisconsin pinching pennies? Like what's the Big Ten TV money for? Right? I just don't get what's going on up there.
Yeah, I don't understand why they're pinching pennies because they're they're not a basketball school or a hockey school.
They're good in basketball and they get NCAA tournament win revenue too. So that's another thing.
Yeah, but they're not like Kentucky's putting 280% basketball to football ratio.
Well, yeah, they're not a basketball school on the scale of Kentucky, of course not, but like they're good, they're solid. They get money.
Yeah, I understand, but they're not. They're Iowa in terms. They're a borderline tournament team every single year. Like,
well, they've made a lot of second weekends and second rounds. That like Iowa hasn't made the Sweet 16 since 1999. So
that's fair.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair. But my overall point is Wisconsin's down bad. They're probably in the worst shape going forward. Is there another big domino to fall in the coaching search that hasn't fallen yet? Is there some coach out there that you think is going to get fired but hasn't yet?
Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. I don't see how they keep him. Like, I don't see what the point is. Like, if he can't develop Aiden Childs, what is the point? What are we doing here? I think Michigan State needs to drop back 5 and punt. There should be plenty of good candidates, like Brian Kelly to Michigan State. Yes?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right? That makes sense. Yeah. So you punt, you get rid of Jonathan Smith, you hire Brian Kelly. Boom, done. Spartans will.
Do you think more coaches in the middle tier of the Big Ten SEC are now going to be fired because of the coaches at the top that are getting fired? So, like, would Jonathan Smith have gotten fired if Brian Kelly didn't get fired? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Kind of, sort of. And I think it's the impatience that's part of the NIL transfer portal era. And, it's the Signetti effect, right? Like,
yes.
If this guy can walk off the street from James Madison, no disrespect intended to James Madison, and he instantly makes a nobody, nowhere, nothing program instantly a national title contender, like, right? That's going to heat up and accelerate expectations across the country. Like, how can it not, right? So
that's true.
Very much think you're onto something there.
Yeah, but every fan base, in my opinion, that has that mindset is going to fall woefully short of what Kirk Signetti has done in Indiana. I mean, he's unbelievable. Their team and their program, what they've done in Indiana since he's arrived, has just been impressive in a league. But final thing I'll ask you, man, is right now with your Trojans, do you think they're more likely to make the college football playoffs? Or do you think they're more likely not to make the college football playoffs? Because I'm not a full believer in Oregon yet. I'll just be honest with you. Their best win is Iowa. And outside of that, they have nothing on their resume.
Well, Adam Lamparello used to be a loyal viewer of my previous USC show with Tim Prangley, now a new show with Ethan and Crash. Adam Lamparello here in the chat talking about Virginia Tech, and he says, do you think USC can beat Oregon? So DeReal MVP, Adam Lamparello, two great personalities here at the Voice of College Football family. I'll answer your unified joint question at the same time. Lincoln Riley on the road at USC. His track record has been absolutely abysmal. Now, came close a few times to some really big statement wins. Utah in 2022, scored 42 points, got a 14-point lead, but couldn't hold it. Cam Rising converts the late 2-point conversion. Utah wins that game 3 years ago, 43-42. 0 for 2 at Notre Dame, lost at Illinois, lost last year at Michigan. Like, Lincoln Riley at USC in big games on the road, he's been a donut. He's been a bagel. He's been an O. And so now he goes to the O. Autzen Stadium in Eugene. And so, I'm not fully sold on Oregon. Oregon barely inched past the line at Iowa, struggled against Wisconsin, has struggled basically, has been hasn't looked that good over the past 6 weeks. Got dominated by Indiana, of course, in Autzen Stadium. But Lincoln Riley on the road at USC, like, I need to see it. I'm doubting Thomas. I'm a USC show host, but I'm a skeptic. I always tell Ethan, in particular, one of my colleagues, that I'm the bad cop. I'm the skeptic. Ethan's a little more optimistic, trying to see the bright side of things. I'm the skeptic, and so I'm doubting Thomas. I need to believe it when I see it. So I have to think that Oregon wins this game, but like I can envision a scenario in which USC wins. Dante Moore, a few times each game, he will make an NFL throw, and you fall. It's easy to fall in love with him and to think like, oh, this guy could be really special, but he doesn't sustain it, right? He doesn't keep it together for a whole game. He usually makes a mistake or two, and so I can see Jaden Maiava outplaying Dante Moore, which is USC's basic fundamental path to victory. But still, it gets down to Lincoln Riley on the road at USC, big game. Prove it. You got to prove it. So I'm definitely, my money would be with the Ducks. I think the line 10.5 is fair.
Well, that's a lot. 10.5 is a lot.
It is a lot, but USC has to prove it. Let's keep in mind, Notre Dame was a 9.5-point favorite against USC and did cover. Now, it was very slight, and USC was kind of, if you're just talking about things from a betting standpoint, USC was the right side for most of that game, and it ended up Notre Dame covering. So like, USC plus the 9.5. Like if you're a bettor, you have to think I made the right bet, but I didn't get the result. I didn't cash my ticket. But here, I'm not as certain that 10 point plus 10.5 is a winning ticket for USC. Trojans need to go out and prove it.
Well, that's totally fair. Good luck in the games of the week in college football, man.
Thanks, Drill MVP. I'll always appreciate your insights. All right, moving along here. Trey,
what's
how
up,
you
Matt?
doing? What do you have for us here?
Hey, what's up, Matt? You been all right? You been all right, Matt?
I can hear you. Yep. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to disagree with all of what he said. All of it. Okay. So first, I love March Madness. I think it's the best time one of the best times of the year, especially when nothing's really going on. Wisconsin made the tournament since 1997 all the way till now and only missed it 3 times.
Yeah, Wisconsin's not Iowa. Like we're clear on that. They
are not Iowa. They're not the Zags either. I'm Gonzaga. I love the Zags, and I love my Gators, and I love Louisville. But I have a bunch of teams in March Madness, but there ain't no Iowa. Iowa barely makes March Madness at all. But they ain't the Zags either.
Yeah. What do you got for us in football? That's what people are all gathering here around the virtual campfire to talk about.
So. And you probably watched me. I came on here a lot of times, and I'll say this: Notre Dame has a better resume than Alabama. Now, everybody's going to say, "Oh, they lost to Miami and they lost to Texas A&M," but it was only about 1 possession, less than 7 points, and it would be a different story if they would have won both of them. And they have the team to do that too. They could have been undefeated. So, yes, they are better than Alabama, and they are justified to go over Alabama, and plus they have just lost to Oklahoma, and I think Oklahoma is not as good as we think they are, but still good defense. But if you put them together, I would put Notre Dame in the playoffs than Alabama. That FSU game was really bad, and it should sting a little bit because they're not getting no better, Florida State is, and that's a bad loss. They should get punished for bad losses for a long time. Everybody should. If Florida would have done better, if we were 7-2, and we still have a South Florida, and when we still have a South Florida loss, even though South Florida's doing good, we shouldn't be losing to South Florida. Now, Florida State is not like the Christian Ponder and the E.J. Manuel and the Jameis Winston days. They're not even close. So they should get punished.
All right, I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm just going to come back at you with a point and a kind of a question.
Okay.
The Denver Broncos, I don't think they're great.
I love the Broncos.
Okay,
I love the Broncos.
But they're winning games. Like they're pulling them out. That's kind of like Oklahoma, right? Like it's a team where the eye test, they don't look great. Okay, and so like you say, Oklahoma is not that great. Like intellectually, I agree with you. Okay. But when you do win, it's kind of like the Patriots, also to a degree the Chicago Bears, the first place Chicago Bears, like, no, they don't look great, but they're winning games, So how do you resolve that question, right? Because, obviously you're evaluating teams and how good are they and like who passes the eye test? That's, what we observe with our eyes. They're not that great. But at some point, you have to say, well, 9-1 is better than 7-3. So, So how do you resolve that? I'm just interested in that. I'm not saying you're wrong. Like this is a really good meat and potatoes football conversation here, but just how do you balance what you see with your eyes versus those win-loss totals on the ledger sheet?
Okay, sure. So I think the eye test is very important. Also, strength and schedule. Not everybody's equal in strength and schedule. Some teams like Ohio State, they play a tough conference in the Big Ten. They really didn't play nobody. And the only ones to measure up is going to be Michigan. That is a tough game as always. But if they lose to Michigan, they should be punished because Michigan's not as good as as Indiana and USC. They lost to USC and they should be punished. I think the eye test is very important. because it tells you a lot of things about the team. And sometimes you can't tell by the numbers of I'm a numbers guy. I love analytics, but you can't really tell by the numbers. Some of them are empty calories. If anybody watches Undisputed back then, Shannon Sharp was like, it's all empty calories, Skip. It's empty calories, and it's not as what it seems. I think the eye test really tells you what the team and how they function, how they work well together in certain matchups. That people don't look at everything. I think it's very important about that. And they get caught up about
it's interesting.
Caught up about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talked about James Franklin earlier in the show because he made national news. And what's James Franklin known for, or what did he become known for at Penn State? He'd win the 10 easy games on the schedule. Yep. He'd lose to Ohio State. He'd lose to Michigan.
Yep.
So 10-2, it looks good on the surface, but like Penn State's not that good. So and really, in this moment of parity in college football, a decade ago it was the Alabama-Clemson Death Star, and you go into a season and, well, it's going to be Alabama and Clemson, and it usually turned out that way.
Yeah.
Now it's this flattening, leveling out of the playing field. It's just amazing to realize how completely different the sport is from 10 years ago, or even 4, because like it was Alabama, Georgia, and maybe someone else getting in the mix. Even just in like the last 3-4 years, such a dramatic leveling out of the sport with NIL and the portal. And a lot of people thought this was going to just consolidate the elites at the top. No, it has had a democratizing effect on the sport. So like there's a truckload of 2 lost teams, and it's easy to think they're not very good. But like if you've beaten one of those 8-2 teams, it's a good win. And that's the way I think the argument is with these resumes. Beating this 8-2 team over that 8-2 team, which is better, which is worse, that's why this conversation is really complicated.
So it goes into more, and I'm going to play situation and scenario in the playoff picture, how it looks like in the playoff picture in just a minute. But I would say is too big. The playoff scale is too big. I think it needs to narrow it down again, because it was a lot more fun, with the 4 teams, maybe 6 or 8, but 12, and then someone's going to cry again because they have a 10-2 season, and then they're going to make it 16 to 24. I don't like that. We need to narrow it down. We need to go back to the BCS system, to be honest with you, because that was actually they got hated for a lot, but they are very memorable for their matchups. They had some awesome matchups back in the day, and I think it was.
Is that true? No, talk to me about that. Now, I'm the biggest BCS critic, and hater there is, or at least one of. So there were 16, hold on. I'll give you the floor. Just a second. There were 16 seasons of the BCS. How many times did we have a really epic national championship game? We had a few, but not many.
Are you talking about, there's like 2 different championships. We got the one that, was circling around different BCS New Year Bowls, and then you got the national championship itself that time. Are you talking about both?
National championship game? The BCS was a 2-team national championship system. There were no semifinals. So just
it wasn't semifinal. It's like traded places. Like this year, it was like Texas and USC at the Rose Bowl. Then the next year,
that's one.
Yeah. So I think that was
one epic BCS title game. And then you had Ohio State, Miami in that Fiesta Bowl, the 2003 Fiesta Bowl, and then the Florida State Auburn, the final one.
Yes,
like those were 3 legitimately great, epic, fantastic BCS title games. The other 13,
I don't think it's just that either. I think it's the other New Year Bowls or other bowl games that made it more memorable, like Florida State and Penn State in 2005, LSU and Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl.
Georgia, but let me stop you there. But let me stop you on that point. Before the BCS, I am old enough to remember the 1980s, like actually watching 1980s bowl games, like Mark Rogers too. In the 1980s, fans, like when an SEC team won the SEC championship, they would throw sugar cubes on the field. And down in Texas, they'd throw cotton puffs onto the field. And in the Big 8, Oklahoma and Nebraska, they'd throw oranges on the field. Like, it really mattered when you won your conference championship in the 1980s and you made your regional bowl game. With the BCS, we got into a new era where if you weren't in the BCS title game, fans stopped throwing oranges, cotton puffs, sugar cubes onto the field because you weren't in the big game. It downgraded all those other bowl games, did it not?
I think it honored the conference titles though. Like the ACC, if you win the ACC, you went to the Orange Bowl. That's huge. The biggest games should be the conference winners. Like 2009, it was Florida and Alabama. Yeah, Florida went to the Sugar Bowl, but that is still a big game, and I was happy about it. Even though we didn't went to the national championship with Tim Tebow, I was still happy about it. But the Cotton Bowl has that, still had that aura. The Capital One Bowl kind of have an aura. I remember when I was a kid, the Outback Bowl, the Chick-fil-A Bowl, those New Year games around Christmas, past New Year's, those were really mean something. But before the Christmas games, it's still entertaining. They have some meaningful because you can't say a Sun Belt team is going to go to the national championship or into a New Year bowl game. There's very few teams. It's got to be like a Boise State or a Houston Cougar or something relevant and actually has some teams they beat. That's hard, but they were actually happy about it. The New Orleans Bowl, I couldn't believe they were some Sun Belt team that won the conference so happy about a New Orleans Bowl. I'm like, whoa, that's good. And I enjoy watching them. I think it's very important. But you want to talk about the rankings, and the rankings come out tomorrow, Matt. So I'll say this. So it's going to be very different, and I'm looking at it right now. And so the first thing I will say is Notre Dame should be a lock. Notre Dame should be a lock-in for the playoffs. They have done just enough. I think they beat Pitt. They were ranked. They beat USC. That's good. And USC is good. They're not a knockoff of like 2010 to 2016 or something. Pre-Caleb Williams. This is a legit USC team that beat Michigan. And they're going to beat Oregon too. But I think
USC needs to beat Oregon to like ascend to a higher level. That's for sure.
I think Notre Dame will be locked in. So what's going to happen? Like you said, you got Alabama, BYU, then you got Vanderbilt, Utah.
Big weekend for Utah with Cincinnati losing, which now opens up the door. If Cincinnati can take down BYU, you get a muddled multi-team tie.
Yeah.
Below Texas Tech, and Utah can emerge from that scramble. Utah and Arizona State had a really big weekend with the loss.
I think everybody's forgetting about Utah. Utah has always been very quiet at the end of the year. They might not have been good at the beginning, but they can out-physical you. And Kyle Whittingham always have a great team at the end of the year. And you know it well. You faced them twice. That one, I think, twice in that 1 year?
Yeah, they wore out USC and prevented USC from making the playoff. Damn them. Like, they made my life a living hell.
Now, think about it this way. Imagine Utah in the playoffs. That will cause some problems. Utah is not easy. They are definitely
not against easy. Kyle Whittingham in the playoff, yeah. I probably would not want to have that first-round matchup.
Oh, my gosh. Imagine going to Salt Lake City.
Yeah, although it's going to be hard for Utah to get a higher seed in a home game, though.
Who knows with this? And I'll say the last two things here about this playoff ranking here. Miami, it's very interesting what's going to happen with them. I think they're out of contention for the ACC. There is too much. I think Georgia Tech locked themselves in.
If Pitt beats Georgia Tech, they're back in it. But if Georgia Tech beats Pitt, that probably closes the door on that hope.
Before I get to my last thing, I think that scared me a little bit. Georgia Tech kind of scared me. I thought everything should be smooth. All of a sudden,
their defense is creaky right now. They need to be scoring bunches of points to win. That's where they are right now.
Do you think they should if they beat Georgia, do they have to win the ACC to get in? If they beat Georgia, that'd be interesting.
They need to beat Pitt and Georgia to have any chance at an at-large.
Really?
But it would be difficult.
Oh man,
Their likely path is the ACC. But if they can beat Pitt and Georgia, and then they lose the ACC title game to finish 11-2, then you could have a Georgia Tech Miami debate, and boy, that could be really nasty. But DeReal MVP made the point that there are so many 2-loss teams, one might get left out. So like Georgia Tech, I strongly think Georgia Tech has to win the ACC to go in at this point.
I think so too. For the last thing here, how about this American Conference and not American? The Group of 5. We have a
roller derby, baby.
Issue. We have James Madison. Then you got Navy. I thought Navy was out, but Navy beat who they beat.
That's what I thought they were out. They pull me back in.
They pull you back in. Navy could be they're a little demon now. Navy. You don't think Navy can do something? And I surely didn't. I thought they were done after the Notre Dame.
And of course, here's the scenario with Navy. Navy gets named to the playoff and then has to play the Army game and loses to Army. And like that, that's
man,
possible. I'm not predicting that, but that's possible. And that would just, boom. That would just blow everybody's mind.
Thing about. Don't forget San Diego State. Even though they lost to
lost to Hawaii, though, that I don't think they recover from that.
I don't think so either. But
you can't get blown out by Hawaii.
Come on, Hawaii is a good team. I like Hawaii. Everybody's cheering for Hawaii. I seen on Reddit somehow they got thrown in the playoff discussion, like Hawaii.
Yeah,
like Hawaii could be in the. That would be actually pretty interesting. Have Colt Brennan come back 15 years later and let him rip it.
Oh man. No, that Sugar Bowl against Georgia gives me nightmares. I was literally fearing for the safety of every Hawaii player. I thought they were all going to get their knees broken and their ribs punctured, their lungs punctured, and their ribs destroyed. Like I thought that players were just going to be sent to the hospital in that game. And I've never felt like that in any other football game I've ever watched.
They never. I love Colt Brennan in Hawaii at that time, and they deserve to be there. But god dang, at least put them against somebody else in the dang New Year Bowl, like Virginia.
Yeah, Tech. Well, it should have been Illinois versus Hawaii in the Sugar Bowl, and it should have been USC versus Georgia in the Rose Bowl. But that's part of why I hate the BCS, because they didn't allow the best matchups to take place. Trey, I need to move it along.
Yep.
Thanks for all the insights on a wide slate of topics. Really enjoyed it.
Real quick, what is your favorite BCS bowl? And I'll tell you mine. What's your favorite BCS bowl?
Favorite BCS bowl? I mean, the Rose Bowl. I'm a Western guy, so I have to love the Granddaddy.
Mine's kind of weird. Mine's either the Sugar Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl.
But they're all great. Like, I love them all, but I have to go with Grandpa. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure, Trey. Thanks so much for adding to our show tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Okay. We'll get to our next caller in just a second, but, a lot of talk in the chat about, I don't like 12 teams. It's so watered down. We should have just the elites playing. Just one comment on that. Not going to give you a long sermon, just a one comment. With the 16-team SEC and the 18-team Big Ten, the 17-school ACC, the top teams in conferences are not playing each other, right? Like you no longer have the Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State round robin with the larger Big Ten. So you're not seeing the brand name schools all play each other. Here's a fun fact in the SEC, and this is even before Oklahoma and Texas came to the SEC. Georgia, in about 14 seasons of SEC membership with Texas A&M, since A&M came to the ACC, Georgia's never gone to College Station. Georgia has never played at Texas A&M. So that when you expand the conferences, it's actually a way for the conferences to shield the top teams. It's counterintuitive, right? You would think, more teams in the conference, you're going to play more of the tough teams. No, it means you're going to play Mississippi State more. The top teams are going to play the bottom teams more. That's how the SEC games the system, puts more teams in the playoff. So the point is, you might think 12 teams is way too much and 16 teams is way too much, but we're not seeing the top versus the top in every conference consistently each season. So you need to play more games. You need to have more proving grounds. And if we had the BCS last year, It would have been Oregon versus Georgia. Ohio State beat Oregon by 79 billion points in the Rose Bowl. All right? Like, so we need to see the proving ground games. We need more games. Like, it's a feature, not a bug, that we now have 11 playoff games as opposed to the BCS having only one. We need to play more games. You need to have more proving grounds. Another thing that I've long advocated, and I'll get to our next caller in just a second, but flex games. We got to flex one game in each conference so that, we don't know who's good, we don't know who's bad. So in mid-October, late October, somewhere around there, week 8, week 9, okay, you realize, okay, this top team in the conference and this top team in the conference are not on the regular schedule. So we need to have them play, on Thanksgiving, late November, something like that, and to make sure that you're playing you have your best teams going against each other in playoff games. And the other solution is, instead of a conference championship game, you have a bubble play-in game. Your 4 seed versus your 5 seed, your 3 seed versus your 6 seed. We need to be playing more games, having more proving grounds. So saying 12 teams is too much, I get it, but it's a different era of college football. Maybe a decade ago would have made more sense, but there are lots of things with these expanded conferences that make it harder for the top teams in various conferences to play everyone. There's usually a loophole somewhere, so just something to keep in mind. All right, one of our favorites, loyal viewer, listener,
Yes.
Dr. Buckeye.
Yes.
How are you doing, Doctor? The good
How you
doctor
doing,
is
Matt?
in.
The doctor is in the house. Thank you very much, Matt. Doing a good job tonight, holding down the fort. I wanted to comment. I'll get to the playoffs here in just a second. The James Franklin hire I find to be very interesting. I do think he is in a place to where, Virginia Tech is situated in a good part of the country where there's a solid recruiting base in that Virginia area and up into that East Coast area. Obviously, the ACC is a conference where, it's not the SEC, it's not the Big Ten, where he's been before. So I do think there's an opportunity for him to win some games there. But I will say the key with Franklin is I think just like every other of the top coaches in the country, you got to be able to build the right coaching staff. And I think that, a lot of people talk about, the miss he had at quarterback. And, a lot of people dump on Drew Aller. I get that. Adam's in the chat. He's a big Drew Aller fan. We all know that. But I digress. Just joking. But it's also about picking your right staff. And I always said his best hire he ever had was when Joe Moorhead ran his offense. And that's when he had those Saquon Barkley, Trace McSorley teams. So it will be interesting to see if he can get the right staff together there at Virginia Tech, because if he can get the right staff with that recruiting base and in that conference, I do think he can win some games.
Okay, I know you have plenty more points, but let's just hit that one.
Sure.
And you bring up the really important annual reminder at Coaching Carousel season that it's not just the head coach you hire.
Yes.
Who's he bringing with him?
Yes.
Who's he bringing in? And so if you're a Virginia Tech fan, you have to know, we need our quarterback whisperer. So,
Yes.
Can James Franklin find his new version of what Joe Moorhead was in 2016 and 2017? So if you're Virginia Tech, hopefully in the interview process, James Franklin came up with really good offensive coordinator hires. So that is the piece of the puzzle with that staff that James Franklin absolutely has to nail. And so it extends to all these other vacancies. You're not just hiring a head coach, you're hiring the staff. So when you're interviewing the head coach, it has to be, who are your coordinators? Who's your strength coach?
Right.
Up and down on the line, and you need to get good answers. And if you don't, on to the next candidate. Sorry, you can't. It's not just about hiring a guy at the top. When Lincoln Riley was hired by USC, and
Yes.
I'm not relitigating it in the sense of of course you hire Lincoln Riley if you're USC, and of course you allow him to bring in a staff. But he was bringing in Alex Grinch. And you just gotta wonder, was there how robust, how intense was the conversation between then USC athletic director Mike Bone and Lincoln Riley? You do have this Alex Grinch character as your defensive coordinator. You're sure about that? Like you can't get anyone better. And like this might have been the best thing for USC to do. It's all right, you can bring Alex Grinch in for 1 year, but if he struggles, like
Right.
you need to clean house for year 2. Like there needs to be a stipulation there. And I have the feeling that question was not asked of Lincoln Riley when hired. So you got to bring in your right coordinators. You got to nail the staff, and that has to be an essential, not peripheral, essential central part of the hiring process.
Yeah, I mean, like we had at Ohio State, with Ryan Day, he got it right early on when he hired Jeff Halfley his first year as defensive coordinator. Unfortunately, he only stayed 1 year before he took the BC job. Then he missed on a defensive coordinator with Kerry Combs, who wasn't very good, but he upgraded with Jim Knowles, and now he's upgraded after that with Matt Patricia. Lincoln Riley's kind of been, if you're an offensive mind like a Day or like a Riley, you better get the defensive mind right. Now, I will say, and that's actually leads me to my segue. I did get a chance to watch your team this week. Looked very bad in that first half for you guys, by the way, Matt. But yeah, was not good. Was not good. But you hung in there, and Iowa's offense did what Iowa's offense kind of did in the second half. You got him into some third and longs. Gronowski was missing some throws. And there were some throws out there to be made, but you got him into third down. You guys were able to get off the field. I thought they were just going to play bully ball in the second half and kind of just try to dominate the line of scrimmage against you guys. By the way, I always get maybe Maeva, correct?
Mayava,
my bad. I stand corrected. It's not exactly Joe Smith, so my bad. But in any case, the passing game kind of got going. I think Lemon's one of the best receivers in college football, I have to say.
Best game I've seen by a wide receiver all season. And I know that you're a fan of Jeremiah Smith from the Buckeyes, but this was Cirque du Soleil. Like he was just an acrobat out there, Mekhi Lemon against Iowa. Like 3 circus catches in one game.
He was really good, really good. I will say, I think you guys are a solid team. I have to ask this question. Where is the USC fan base if Lincoln finishes 9-3 this year? Is that decent, or is it's got to be 10-2 and make the playoff kind of year? You would know.
Well, it's got to be 10-2, but I will say that, at least getting to this Oregon game and making it a big game, as opposed to it being a dead rubber and nothing to play for, that's something. And of course, you have the elite recruiting class next season. So, and when Lincoln Riley came aboard and he hit it out of the park in year 1, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be, paradise, Pax Romana, USC is gonna get there. But then 2023 happened, and I became a skeptic. I was a skeptic last year. I've been a skeptic most of this year. That Iowa win showed some stones. Like we haven't generally seen that. So I'm not a full Lincoln Riley believer, but like I'm off the ledge. I'm no longer a full skeptic. And maybe the pieces are going to come together next season, but I don't think USC beats Oregon this week.
I think it's a close game.
This team has to prove it can get it done on the road against a good opponent.
Yeah, you know what? To be fair, you played, and I'm saying this, and I know DeReal, he comes at Notre Dame a little bit. I don't care what you say. To me, Notre Dame is a top 5 team in the country. I don't care what you say. To me, Notre Dame is a top 5 team in the country. And I can tell whether a team's got good football players, bad football players. You can talk to me about the schedule until you're blue in the face. If you think Texas A&M is a top 3 football team in the country, it was a 41-40 game that could have gone either way. If they play that game again, you can't tell me that Notre Dame wouldn't beat them. 41-40 is about as even gets. So I don't care what you say. I believe that was close to basically an even game. I know it was played at Notre Dame. You can go that way on it. But I legitimately think Notre Dame is a top 5 team. And I would also say to your team, you guys went there and played a really good game for, what would you say, about 3.5 quarters. That was a game for basically about 3.5 quarters. Notre Dame scored that touchdown and essentially kind of put it away. I think Riley had some debatable situational play calling in that fourth quarter, by the way.
The trick play, yes.
Yeah, and trying to run that quarterback play on 4.5 yard when he should have let his 6-something quarterback just sneak the ball for a first down when they were down 10. You know what I mean? I thought that was debatable too. Trying to hit the tight end out in the flat there. But even if you go down and score, I don't know if you come back and win that game. But bottom line, I actually do think, by the way, I have to say this. I think you have a legit chance at this week at Oregon. I think Oregon is good. I think Oregon lost a lot off of last year's team. I think that Moore is a very good quarterback. I think their skill is solid. They're a little bit better on defense than I thought they would be, considering they lost some of that D-line talent off of last year's team with Harmon and Birch and some of these other key players off of that D-line. But I think you guys have a legit chance to go in there and win. I do. I think that's a 4-quarter game. Your thoughts?
I can't trust Lincoln Riley on the road against a good team. I can't. I think Notre Dame was a very winnable game. Like, that was a mistake-filled game on both sides.
True.
And it was there, and USC didn't rise up and take it. Also, the USC-Nebraska game, USC won that game to keep its season alive, but let's be honest. I cover USC. I want USC to do well. That doesn't mean I should be pumping sunshine. If Dylan Raiola doesn't get hurt, I think USC loses that game. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves there. So USC has to prove it. If USC wins, it wouldn't be the most stunning thing imaginable, but it will be a definite surprise. But I would say that if USC wins, it's because, this is not the best of Oregon. Like, we saw the best of Oregon last season. This is not that. And, Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, proven veteran quarterbacks, Dante Moore is not in the same class. He shows flashes, but those are just flashes. In terms of the consistency, we're still waiting to see that. So again, USC's path to victory is for Jaden Mayava to outplay Dante Moore by a good margin. Possible, but not likely. And Oregon does have better players at most of the other positions. And the other thing, USC's defense, great second halves each of the past 3 weeks. Shut down Nebraska second half, shut down Northwestern second half, shut out Iowa second half. But Oregon is not Nebraska, Northwestern, and Iowa. And USC hits the snooze bar for the first 20 minutes of the game. Nebraska, Northwestern, and Iowa, USC's defense stunk in the first 20 minutes. So you can't get away with the first 20 minutes being bad. And so that's the other point about USC Oregon. USC playing a complete 60-minute road game under Lincoln Riley against a good opponent. It's never happened. Never, not once. So I need to see it happen.
See, Oregon's skill, I also wonder if it's as good as it was a year ago with James at running back, Tez Johnson at receiver.
Sadiq was out against Iowa. DeForest Moore was out against Iowa. So, that's also part of it.
Yeah. I think you keep it competitive. I'm not saying you pull it out, but I think I wouldn't be surprised to see it at least be a one-possession game. I'll say that.
Yeah, very possible. It wouldn't be a shocker. But I don't trust this team on the road. Speaking of USC,
barring turnovers. Now, if there's a couple turnovers, it flips the game. Obviously that
USC fans are praying for Dante Moore to throw three picks.
You think you need 3 picks to pull that one out, Matt? Yeah. Okay, all right.
It sure ain't gonna be one. We can debate too.
Okay.
It sure ain't gonna be one.
All right. All right. Let's talk about the playoff picture. Let's get into it. I think Oklahoma got a win this week that was much needed. And I think DeReal's hopes of getting 5 SEC teams now looks like there's a fairly decent path for that to possibly happen. And
Texas needs to beat Texas A&M. That might be the domino which has to fall.
Right. So if we're looking at it, let's do some numbers here. Okay, so if we say that there are 5 SEC teams and there's only 3 Big Ten teams, then I think that's okay. So you got 8 there between the 2 conferences. And we're going to say there's only one Big 12 team. There's only one ACC team, correct?
Yeah, that's how it's probably looking, though Miami could create a 2-bid ACC if all the dominoes have to fall, but there are a lot of dominoes there.
Okay. So that gets us to 10 with those two. One ACC, one Big 12, 8 combined between the Big 10 and the SEC. Then that leaves us with non-Power 5, and then Notre Dame is 11 and 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's tight. It's tight.
It
No
is
question.
tight.
And
Go ahead.
I remember coming on this show as a guest with Mark Rogers hosting, and Jareel MVP had a discussion, and we talked. You were there because you're always here.
Yes. I try to be.
It was 9-3 Vanderbilt versus 10-2 Notre Dame. Who's getting in? And we could say, maybe Vanderbilt deserves it, but look, folks, a 10-2 Notre Dame team historically, comparing to previous eras, historically, if Notre Dame's on the fence and another team's on the fence, Notre Dame gets in. Historically, that is how it goes. Now, that doesn't guarantee Notre Dame will get in this time, but I know where my money would be. Okay? They want that TV. They want the big name on the board. It's just his history tells us Notre Dame's going to win a 50-50 ball if it comes to that.
Is Notre Dame rooting for USC to win out, for that win to look better than maybe it is too?
No, you know what? I think you don't. I think you actually want USC to be clear out of the picture so that the Big Ten gets only
true.
3.
That's right.
Yeah, that's guaranteed. Big Ten will have only 3 if USC loses, and then your Buckeyes need to beat Michigan. So
right,
USC and Michigan.
Well, that's
lose,
happening.
Big Ten is a 3-bid league, and that should pretty much cement Notre Dame in the field. So you don't want USC to be a 4th Big Ten team in the mix.
So you're saying that there could be a world where both 10-2 Oregon, 10-2 USC could make it?
Possible. You wouldn't want to write that off.
Okay.
You wouldn't want to write it off. I mean, this is, there's a life metaphor for every Price is Right game, and the one my go-to is Plinko. Bloop bloop bloop. Going down the peg. Is it going to hit that $5,000 in the middle or the 2 zeros on the side? It's how the Plinko chip falls, baby. So okay, but if you beat Oregon, I think that still makes Notre Dame, because I think 10-2 Notre Dame would get in over 10-2 Oregon. Yeah, but you see that's one debate. It's not the whole picture. You want fewer seats available. You want fewer possibilities. You want to shrink the field.
Right.
So, so it can't just be one silo. You're looking at several teams in a game of roller derby.
What I'm saying, Matt, is that basically maybe USC and Oregon could be kind of a play-in game for the 3rd spot for the Big Ten.
Maybe. Obviously, but they're not on the same footing. It's 100% must win for USC. It's or it's for Oregon. It's you might be in with a loss, but you don't want to chance it. But USC is 100% out. And so for that reason, if you're Notre Dame or you're Miami, you don't want to compete with other possibilities. You want to eliminate possibilities, like a machete in the jungle, slash it away, chop it away. You want Texas losing that 4th game to A&M. You want Oklahoma losing a 3rd game to Missouri or LSU. You just want to eliminate possibilities. You want Tennessee to beat Vanderbilt.
You want Texas A&M.
You just want to eliminate possibilities if you're another bubble team on the fence.
Are we sure? Is Texas out after the blowout this week, or do they still have life if they've somehow pulled the upset?
If they beat A&M, this is going to be the thermonuclear controversy. If Texas beats Texas A&M 9-3, but the high end wins, and a 10-2 Miami could be left out, and kaboom! You're going to have the huge brawl on Selection Sunday and in the 24 hours leading up to it. 9-3 Texas is just going to blow everybody's minds and make everybody bitter.
Somewhere Mark Rogers is out there rooting for all this chaos. He is that guy. So
Texas is the chaos agent. We all agree on that.
Exactly, because if they upset an undefeated A&M, then look out.
It's going to look really good on the ledger sheet. Yes.
Okay, so what is the path? So if Texas Tech were to get, I think Texas Tech has to win the Big 12 to get in.
Every Big 12 team has to win the conference championship in my mind. I don't see the Big 12 getting two.
I don't see the Big 12. You do? Did you say you saw a path for the ACC to get two?
Miami, because Miami has, the win over Notre Dame, the win over South Florida. Like Miami has some heft on its at-large resume. So like 10-2 Miami and the ACC champion, maybe. But it's a tricky path because Miami has, it's going to be hard for if Georgia Tech beats Pitt, that locks Miami out of the ACC championship game, and then Miami's just going to need so many dominoes to fall in exactly the right way, and you just should have beaten Miller Moss in Louisville, and Miller Moss played like garbage.
Or was SMU worse than that?
SMU,
SMU might have been worse than that. Yeah. I'm wondering if SMU was actually worse than that. I don't know. But
it goes back to the record doesn't look that bad, but the team, eye test versus raw numbers. Anything else, Doctor? I need to move it along. We have a lot of people.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to run down some numbers and see. We it'd be interesting to see if we get this controversy. Texas, your game versus Oregon. We know we're going to knock out that team the last week in November, so people don't need to worry about that.
Oh, you better.
Tell me about it. We better.
Boy, how many people in Columbus are going to jump off a bridge if you don't beat Michigan this time?
Please, just stop. I don't want to live in that world. I don't think people want to raise children in that kind of world.
I don't think Sherrone Moore is any good. Like, you can't get outcoached by Sherrone Moore again.
Don't speak it into existence, Matt.
Hey, it won't be my fault if Ohio State loses. Believe you me.
Do not speak that into that blasphemy.
Don't blame me. If you can't beat Sherrone Moore for once in a blue moon, it is all your fault.
Stop that, Matt. You take care of yourself, my friend.
Thanks, good doctor. Always great to talk to you.
See you, Matt.
All right. Go to our next caller, but first, hey, Dave Valensky with 2 different super chats. Dave, thanks so much for supporting us here at the Voice of College Football, and Adam Lamparello earlier with the $25 super chat. All right, next up, Will ND. Will, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it up front in case you were about to ask me. Yes, Jeremiah Love should win the 2025 Heisman Trophy. And I say this because, Fernando Mendoza, I want him on my team. Great teammate, great winner, great leader. But this is not how the Heisman Trophy works. You don't get to throw a fourth quarter interception at Iowa against Oregon and against Penn State, and then you score a touchdown to undo the mistake you just made. No, those are not Heisman moments. That's not how this works. You don't.
Those are Ian Book moments.
That means you're the Heisman winner. No, that's not how this works. And with Julian saying, all right, he's been great. Okay, no doubt, he's been great, but he has 21 other dudes around him. He has a brick wall in front of him, and he's throwing 7-yard passes. So of course he's going to go 22 of 24. Like Julian saying is not Charlie Ward 1993. He's not Danny Werfel 1996. Like, we need to remember what a heavyweight quarterback looks like. We need to remember what a giant quarterback, like Caleb Williams 2022, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, like guys who'd hang 50 on your butt. Like that's elite quarterbacking. These guys are not that. The quarterback discourse surrounding the Heisman Trophy has been awful this season. Jeremiah Love is a dude. Like, he's tough, he's physical, and he can spin you into oblivion as he did against Pitt. Like, he strikes me as the best player on Notre Dame. Fernando Mendoza is not the best player on Indiana. It's the defensive line. That's Indiana's best position group. Like, you at least have to be the best player on your team. I think you can credibly say Jeremiah Love is the best player on Notre Dame, especially with C.J. Carr struggling.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Jeremiah Love still goes beast mode. Like, that's a dude. That's an aircraft carrier. Fernando Mendoza is a really good player, but he's not an aircraft carrier. So, yes, Jeremiah Love, Heisman Trophy. Number 2, Jacob Rodriguez, Texas Tech. All right, Will, now you have the floor.
I agree. I do agree with that. I'm worried about – I think the only way we get knocked out is if Texas wins. I think that's the only – that's my biggest fear, but I'm feeling pretty good about playoffs.
You should, yeah, because you're going to be 10-2. Like, you're not losing to Syracuse and Stanford. So, yeah, I would feel pretty good myself. But, yeah, Texas is that, as Tim Brando likes to say, the fly in the ointment. Texas could scramble a lot of eggs, that's for sure.
Yeah. But Marv Goo has to be pretty happy with how that second half went for USC. What do you say?
Nice callback.
Yeah.
Marv Goo, John McKay and John Robinson's legendary longtime USC assistant coach, for those who didn't know. Go ahead, Will.
And Matt, so if USC wins this game, I feel like it'll be kind of the tipping point of this is the end of the Oregon era as the Kings of the West Coast, and this is USC, the Empire striking back. Do you think it could be that tipping point?
I mean, Dan Lanning has recruited at a high level. Like, his culture's good, and people outside of Oregon might be annoyed at him for his arrogance, for puffing his chest. I know, I was a guest on the Iowa show last week with Mark and Corey Breda, and Iowa fans were not happy that Oregon was strutting around after winning 18-16. Oregon didn't win by 30. It went on a last-second field goal, and yet the Ducks were strutting around Kinnick Stadium. It didn't go down well with the locals. So you can be annoyed or put off by Dan Lanning, but he's a good coach. He has a good culture. He has a good thing going. Obviously, if USC wins, it might be less about Oregon fading and more about Lincoln Riley, after 4 seasons, finally aligning the Rubik's Cube at USC. But no, I think Dan Lanning is going to keep Oregon relevant. I think the thing we have to keep in mind with Oregon is that, his portal quarterbacks were really good. Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel did a magnificent job, and he went with the younger guy, the in-house guy, Dante Moore. So maybe this year is not quite as good with the in-house quarterback. If Dan Lanning wants to go get an elite portal quarterback, chances are he'll be able to land him on a relatively consistent basis. So I don't think Oregon's going anywhere. I know USC fans would love that to be so, but I don't really see it happening.
Okay. And do you think the SEC's gotten worse? Like, I feel like watching that Alabama-Oklahoma game, I'm like, Notre Dame would probably handle both of these teams. Like, I just don't think the SEC is like the top end of the SEC is where it used to be.
This is one of the big picture things that I've been thinking about, Will. I'm going to write about it in my I write at Trojans Wire, but I also write at a place called College Sports Wire. I'm going to write a column about how notice everyone, not just Will, but everyone watching here at the Voice of College Football, notice how the Big Ten and the SEC, more or less, maybe not exactly, but more or less, have flipped their situations and their dynamics relative to a decade ago. Just stop and think about that point. I want you to just briefly think about that point. Because a decade ago, 2015, 2016, what was the SEC like? It was Alabama and the 13 dwarfs. Saban was just lording himself way over everyone else in the conference. Alabama would beat like a mediocre Jim McElwain coached Florida team or a Gary Pinkel Missouri team in the SEC championship game. The SEC championship games were wipeouts, non-competitive for a brief period of time. It was just Alabama and 13 other teams. Kind of where the Big Ten is. Ohio State planting its flag, Penn State falling off, Michigan falling off. I mean, Michigan has just 2 losses, but Michigan hasn't been that good. Great. Not barely beating Purdue at home, barely beating Northwestern at Wrigley Field. Come on, and USC dog walked Michigan. So like Michigan versus Oregon. Michigan didn't have to play Oregon. So, it's really feels like Ohio State as team 1, Indiana as team 2, and then a lot of other teams. Like Oregon has not been that impressive. Oregon's taken a step down. So it really is, though. In the 2016 Big Ten, you had a really good Penn State team, you had a really good Ohio State team, you had a really good Wisconsin team. You had some depth. You had several teams at the top of the Big Ten in 2016, Michigan too. So like 9 years ago, the Big Ten had the depth and the balance at the top out, and there was just Alabama in the SEC. 9 years later, it's the SEC with the depth and the balance at the top. And you have Ohio State, ruling over the Big Ten. So I invite all of you to consider that point, that the SEC and Big Ten, it's role reversal relative to about a decade ago, especially the 2016 season. Like the playoff is going to be so interesting because, and especially assuming, and I would have to think, this is a television product, this is an entertainment product. I have to think that Ohio State is going to be placed in the half of the bracket with SEC teams. Like, I think you just got to know that's coming, right? Ohio State will play maybe Oklahoma in the first round, assuming Oklahoma goes 10-2, or if not Oklahoma, maybe Ole Miss, and then the 4 or 5 seed. Ohio State's going to be the 1 seed, so the 4 or 5 seed might be Georgia
or A&M loser, probably.
Georgia, exactly. Like, it's coming, right? They're gonna have Ohio State play SEC teams, and that's what we want, because Ohio State hasn't been challenged in the Big Ten. And of course, we're waiting for that Ohio State-Indiana Big Ten championship game. That's certainly going to be something special, but that's just a conference title game. It's not a playoff game. Ohio State versus the SEC. Come on, you know it. I know it. The American people know it. That's what we want. That's what we're hoping for. And like, ESPN's no dummy. ESPN's going to give us a bracket with Ohio State versus the SEC.
For sure, Matt. Appreciate your time.
All right, and hey, Arsenal looking good.
Looking good. Tough one for VCU.
Could be their year. Could be their year. Go Gunners.
Yeah, but gotta go Gunners for sure. All
right. Always a pleasure, Will. And Notre Dame likely heading for the playoff. We continue on. And yes, Dave Valensky, I did turn into Bob Dole. You know it, I know it, the American people know it. Good catch there for the older folks in the crowd. All right, Keith, what do you have for us here at the Voice of College Football?
This is a lot of fun, Matt.
Good. Glad you're having fun.
Yeah. Did you ever see the YouTube video, 3 Years of Misery at Ohio State?
Did not, but I can readily guess what you're talking about. That school up north.
Yeah, look it up. It is funny, and it's all the Ohio State guys saying for 3 years, now 4 years, we're not going to lose this year. We're not going to lose this year.
Again, mental health, not to kid about mental health, but really, mental health hotlines are going to be really busy in Columbus if the Buckeyes can't win. I mean, that just, it's scary to think about that.
But you know what? The sad thing is, it's probably not going to be as bad as it was last year.
Well, last year was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, because I don't think it's probably not going to be 22 points. We'll see when we get there.
Yeah, in terms of the betting line. Yeah, Ohio State, a 22-point favorite. But of course, the saving grace was Ohio State did, last year, if last year had existed in the 4-team playoff era, that would have been, DEFCON 1 with, Ohio State being knocked clear out of the playoffs. So, boy, thank goodness Ohio State was able to get its second chance in the playoff. And, of course, the Buckeyes made the most of it.
Yeah. Okay, the thing on the playoffs, what everybody's missing here is the object is not to get to 10 wins, okay? The object is to be in the top 10, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not in the top 10, and you might get lucky, be 11 or 12th and still get in and not get squeezed out by a group of 5 or somebody else.
Well, there's a group of 5 bids, so essentially it's be top 11 if we're being really technical about it.
Yeah, but I would be wary at 11 because there might be something like the ACC champion might be squeezed in at 11. So if you're a 10
Well,
and 2 team,
yeah, just to be precise about this, like the ACC champions getting in no matter what, like they're reserved seats at the table.
yes. And what I'm saying is that there are going to be other teams above 11. I'm thinking 11 might be reserved. 11
Okay.
gets reserved sometimes for not just an at-large.
Well, yeah. So like if you're saying the ACC champion will be the number 11 seed and the group of 5 champion will be the 12 seed, I'd be inclined to agree with you. Sure.
Wasn't that last year with Clemson?
Clemson was the 12 seed.
12
But
seed.
but Boise State was the 3 seed because they had the different format. But yeah, so
Oh.
I like the
yeah,
ACC,
that's right.
I think the ACC champ will be 11 and the group of 5 champ will be the 12 seed. And
Right.
That's what we're looking at.
So for all of us at larges and my Michigan guys,
So you'd be a top 10 seed. Yes.
yeah,
You're right.
we got to climb to the top 10. It doesn't matter if we win 10 or 11. We got to be in that top 10.
Yeah. So, okay. So you laid it out and you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So, yeah. And the funny thing is, I made a similar point 2 weeks ago, and boy, did Mark get upset with me because he and DeReal and some others were arguing that SEC could get 6, 7, or 8 teams into the playoffs, and that 9 and 3 SEC should get in before 10 and 2 from other conferences.
Yeah. Well, so if you're saying a few weeks ago, I mean, it was a very fluid situation. And like, what if Oregon had lost to Iowa? What if other things had happened? Like, it wasn't out of the question. It's a study of moving parts. But at this point, it would seem hard for the SEC to get 6, but it's a very decent chance the SEC could get 5. And if Oregon beats USC, that's going to and Michigan loses to Ohio State. If those two things happen, USC and Michigan lose one more game, decent chance that'll happen, then the Big Ten is capped at 3. And if the Big Ten's capped at 3, then the SEC is very likely getting 5 teams in.
Yes, the SEC has the best chance because where everybody's sitting now, they have the absolute best chance. They have to lose that advantage.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm agreeing with you that they're the leading candidate to get 5. But last year the Big Ten got 4 and SEC got 3.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a possibility in the last 2 weeks, though, the conference balance could be flipped again. Possible.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if Texas loses to A&M and Vanderbilt loses to Tennessee, then the SEC might get only 4.
Yes.
And what if Alabama loses to Auburn? Kaboom! What if that happens?
Kaboom! Yeah. And plus, now listen. If Texas, they've got 3 losses already, right?
Yeah. So Texas cannot. We'd all agree Texas has to beat A&M to get in. If Texas loses to A&M, Texas is out. There's no path for an 8-4 Texas. But if Texas does beat A&M to get 9-3 with high-end wins, Texas would have a strong case to make for getting in.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But I mean, at the very least, Keith, Texas might not get in, but it will be in the conversation to the very end.
Will they even beat Texas A&M? Will Texas A&M?
Well,
no.
I know.
No. I mean,
that's an issue. But if they beat A&M, they're at least in the conversation. They're going to get a long look on Selection Sunday.
But who's going to get in? The question I meant to ask was, who's going to get in first? A&M losing to Texas, or Texas with more losses than A&M?
Oh, A&M at 11-1 is in.
Right.
That's not a conversation.
So yeah. So I just don't see. Texas has to hope that a bunch of teams get knocked out before they get in.
Texas is going to want Tennessee to beat Vandy, and we'll want Oklahoma to lose to Missouri, and we'll want Alabama to lose to Auburn. All those things would help Texas.
All those things would help Texas, but would they help the Big 10 and 2 Big 10 teams more?
And yes, like
then it helps them.
If all 2-loss SEC teams on the bubble become 3-loss teams, then that is the 4-team Big 10 scenario right there.
That's right.
But I don't think Michigan or USC get in at 9-3. Like they have to go 10-2. But if they go 10-2 and the SEC 2-loss teams all lose, Big Ten's getting 4.
No, that's right. No 9-3 team's going to get into the top 10. Yeah.
From the Big Ten, yes.
From any conference. From the SEC.
Well, it depends. What if a bunch of teams lose and it's all a jumble? There's going to have to be someone ranked 10th, and that team could have 3 losses. I'm not predicting it's likely. I'm not predicting it's likely, but if the dominoes fall in exactly that way, the Plinko chip. The Plinko chip falls in that 0.
Yeah. I never saw Plinko. I don't think. I guess I saw Prices Right before that time, but anyway, yeah. So so my point is that whoever loses 3 is basically out of it from that point on. I think Texas right now is out of it.
Okay. Well, I think the best way to characterize this is in the SEC, Big Ten, 3 losses, you're out, period.
Right.
SEC, it's 3 losses, you go to the back of the line. You're not out of the room, but you're in the back of the line, and you're going to need help to get back into the
and in addition to all the SEC losses that you just listed, you would have to list something like Michigan losing to Maryland and Oregon losing to who else do they play? Washington. Oregon losing to Washington and USC, so that we all have 3 losses in the Big Ten too. Then Texas will be in the conversation.
And Tony Petitti will be crying in his beer if that happens. My goodness. Wow.
So he could join Sankey, who keeps crying in his tears every year.
Yeah. No, it could happen. Keith, anything else for us? I want to get to our other callers before we go.
No, go blue.
All right. Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it. All right. Another caller coming up. First, Michigander 1212, $10 super chat. Thank you, Michigander 1212. What are everyone's thoughts on a group of 5 12-team playoff? Because they should not be guaranteed a playoff spot, that or there should be a play-in game. Okay, 12-team playoff. How are you going to do that? But, instead of an American Conference championship game or a Mountain West championship game, why not have the 2 best teams in the group of 5 play it out? And so the conferences can just have tiebreakers for first place in their respective conferences, and then you have the 2 best group of 5 teams playing on Conference Championship Saturday. I think now that could work. So that's an interesting thought, Michigander 1212. Thanks again for the super chat. All right, next up, Mooley. How you doing, Mooley? What do you have for us here at the Voice of College Football?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me here. I'm happy to be here. So, so I know you might be a little exhausted about all the playoff talk, but I did have a little extra to add on it, and it's gonna go into like Mark, like how Mark likes to go into like chaos mode. So I'm trying to think what will get the most 2-loss teams to where the committee is going to have a hard time, right? And obviously there is, because USC plays Oregon, and then if USC beats Oregon, Michigan beats Ohio State, there's 3 2-loss teams there. Let's go to the ACC. Miami finishes 2 losses. Let's say Pitt beats who does
Georgia Tech.
Actually, no. Yeah, actually, yeah. Pitt beats Georgia Tech and they lose. I forgot who they play the last
And
one.
then Georgia Tech beats Georgia.
Georgia, yes.
So
Because
Georgia
now,
Tech loses to Pitt, beats Georgia. Yeah. So then you're going to have 20 billion teams with 2 losses.
yeah, and as bad as Georgia Tech's resume has been, they're going to have a win against the number 4 team. That's going to be better than what 99% of teams have, right? You know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna get to that where where Georgia Tech is gonna say, okay, well, let's say if Michigan makes it in the playoffs, then Georgia Tech will say, okay, because they beat Ohio State, Georgia Tech will
Yeah.
say we
All
beat
right.
Georgia.
Let me just stop you. I'll let you continue with your point, but it's worth pointing out. So if Georgia Tech loses to Pitt, that could let Miami into the ACC championship game. And so the discussion around Miami is so important because Miami is unlikely right now to make the ACC championship game and get the automatic bid from the ACC. And so, Miami not being able to win the ACC, Miami can only get in as an at-large right now. But if Georgia Tech loses, then Miami can get the ACC automatic bid. And so even if Georgia Tech then beats Georgia, if Georgia Tech doesn't win the ACC championship, Miami could get the automatic bid. And will the committee put 2 ACC teams in? So, there's no question that Georgia Tech would gain a lot from beating Georgia. But I'd said earlier to a caller, Georgia Tech's going to need to beat Pitt and Georgia to have a better than average chance of getting an at-large.
Right.
All right? Because if Georgia Tech then loses the ACC championship game to, let's say, Virginia, that's going to look pretty bad, and that's going to undo some of the value of the Georgia win. So if you're Georgia Tech, I strongly advise Georgia Tech to win the ACC, and that means beating Pitt and getting to the ACC championship game. It's going to be hard to make it even with a win over Georgia. Georgia Tech really needs to win the ACC to get in the field. All right, continue.
No, I agree. I agree where if it comes down to a bunch of 2-loss teams, Georgia Tech would probably not make it. Same with with Oregon too. USC and Michigan. USC would own the head-to-head, and then Michigan would have that Ohio State loss. So
yeah, if it is a 3-team tie involving USC, Oregon, and Michigan, Oregon does not look good in that scenario. No question about it. That's a really good point.
Correct. And you mentioned Virginia. I'm trying to find the article because on Mark's video, he mentioned that CBS Sports. But if I'm not mistaken, a lot has to go for Miami for them to make it, lot of specific results. So
it starts with Pitt beating Georgia Tech. That's the main domino. And then it's a bunch of other things, but it starts with that.
Okay. And even if Pitt beats Georgia Tech, does Virginia is Miami in the clear, or does Virginia, for example, go in?
Well, Virginia is in a very good spot. Let's remember the loss to North Carolina State did not count as a conference game. North Carolina and Wake Forest have played quote unquote non-conference games. They do not count in the standings. They just don't play each other that often. So they played what was designated a non-conference game. So it was similar with Virginia and NC State. So that was a non-conference result, even though it was 2 ACC teams playing. So Virginia has just one conference loss and has a path. So Virginia, Georgia Tech, they have the inside track right now, and it's going to take losses for them to open the door for Miami.
Correct, because I'm looking right now. There's 4 1-loss teams in the ACC. Miami is a 2-loss ACC team. So how many so some teams still have to play 2. I'm pretty sure it's 2. So there's 2. Yeah,
2 games left.
2 games.
Miami is going to play at Pitt on Thanksgiving weekend, and we've seen Miami go up to the Northeast in late November and stub its toe. So that's going to be a challenge.
They did that in 2017.
Yeah, they did when they did get to the ACC title game.
Yep.
Their only previous trip, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's the bummer. So yeah, it's interesting. We're gonna see, and Yeah, I'll also say for the Big 12, uh, I think it's pretty safe. Like I know I know what's with the other teams winning, teams are gonna get jumped. Like USC is probably gonna jump, Michigan would definitely jump, etc. I still think there's a decent chance that Utah, just because of how they've been. I mean, I have to see again. I have to see all.
But Utah's going to need BYU to lose to Cincinnati
Okay, yes.
because Utah lost to BYU head to head. So BYU needs to fall into a multi-team tie with Utah. That's how Utah, also Arizona State, can get to the Big 12 championship game.
Do you think Utah has a good chance in an at-large, given where they're ranked currently at
No,
13?
Big 12's not likely to get to. Big
No,
12, the Big 12 and ACC probably going to get one. If the Big 12 or ACC get an at-large, it's likely to be 10-2 Miami with the win over Notre Dame, the win over South Florida, the win over Florida in non-conference. Like Miami has the best case to be an at-large from either the Big 12 or the ACC. Like if Texas Tech loses a second game, Texas Tech lost to Arizona State. If Texas Tech loses a second game, that's not an at-large team. The Texas Tech's going to need to win the Big 12. But the thing is, Texas Tech should win the Big 12 and is in position to win the Big 12. So there's no excuse for Texas Tech to not win the Big 12, get in that way. But there's no Big 12 team that can survive 2 losses and be an at-large team. That's just not happening. Miami's the one real at-large possibility. If Georgia Tech beats Pitt, beats Georgia, and loses a very close ACC championship game, maybe we can have that conversation with Georgia Tech, but that's well down the road. Miami is the only chance for either the Big 12 or the ACC to get a second team in.
So I agree with you in terms of, BYU. I mean, not BYU. Utah probably probably not going to get in. I don't know if I agree with the Miami because currently the committee has Miami below Utah, correct? So my question
let's remember history lesson. TCU and Baylor were ahead of Ohio State all the way through that 2014 playoff. But when all the smoke cleared and the dust settled, who got in? So I do not place value on what's the ranking in mid-November. This is a television show. This is entertainment. The only thing that matters is where you are on Selection Sunday in early December. And let's also keep in mind, they had Notre Dame 8 spots ahead of Miami a couple of weeks ago. Like we all knew that was BS. And I'm not saying Notre Dame didn't deserve to be ahead of Miami. I'm saying 8 spots was a little bit much. So that was a talking point. Like they got their ratings, they got their clicks, they got their content. It's a TV show, and I'm not placing too much stock in any ranking but the last one.
My question is because 2014, if you're talking about the first playoffs where Ohio State, yeah, that's the one where Ohio State won the championship, but they blew out Wisconsin.
Yeah, 59-0. I know, but TCU beat Iowa State by 52-3, something like that. And here's the other thing: TCU was third. TCU wasn't fourth. TCU was third, and they dropped TCU multiple spots despite winning the game by 50 points.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Wait, because. Sorry, I can barely remember that season because I remember the big debate was the season where it was a 63-60 game between Baylor and TCU, right?
Yeah, 63-58. Yep.
And then even though it went to overtime, even though Baylor had the head-to-head, it was clear the way TCU was destroying teams that maybe they should be. Is that the correct season?
Yeah. And TCU was third, not even fourth, third in the penultimate poll, and they moved TCU 2 spots down, not 1, 2, despite crushing Iowa State by 50 in the final game.
Where was Iowa State ranked? What was that? Do you remember their
Ohio
record?
State, Iowa State was not good, but Ohio State was outside the top 4 going into the final weekend, and they moved TCU 2 spots down.
So, okay, so I understand what you're trying to say, and I could be very wrong, but I just can't help but to look at that when you beat, because I remember Wisconsin was like 17, like a top 20 team.
Yeah, Wisconsin was like a top 25 team, and Ohio State absolutely crushed them, no question,
Right.
and it certainly helped.
When
It does remain like, here's the thing. Normally, when a college football team with a given ranking beats even like it doesn't even have to be a good team. When a college football team beats a tomato can by 50, usually that team does not fall in the rankings the next week. If a team plays a tomato can, a bad opponent, and struggles, yes, of course, we've seen that team fall. But usually that team does not fall if you beat even like Little Sisters of the Poor by 50. Usually you don't fall. So like that was very instructive about the college football ranking shows and the process. It's television, it's entertainment. They want us to be talking. Here we are, we're talking. Here's the voice of college football. So do not trust or see these rankings as gospel, as like they're written in stone, and like what happens today is going to be reflective of what you're going to see on Selection Sunday. Take it from someone who's followed this for a long time.
No, I definitely agree. We've seen even after championship teams that you thought would get in would move in or out or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So I agree with that.
Yeah.
I was just saying in the case of Utah and Miami. Now Miami, they probably would, because if that would mean Pitt would have a win over Georgia Tech, and then they would. Who else does Pitt play? They also play. Yeah. Okay. So Pitt lost to Notre Dame, lost to Miami, but then beats Georgia Tech. They finish 8-4. So I could definitely see a case where they see that and maybe move Miami up. Say, hey, you beat Pitt, you beat Notre Dame, you beat USF, but USF is also out of the.
I want to address a comment here about 2014. They didn't have a conference championship. Talking about TCU, that's a huge reason why they fell. Bootzilla, you remember 2017? Did Alabama win the SEC? And Ohio State? Did Ohio State win the Big Ten? Yes, Ohio State won the Big Ten. Who got in for the final spot in 2017? The team that did not win the conference championship, Alabama. Boom, done. Mic drop. All right. Mooley, do you have anything else for us? I need to get to our next caller.
Oh, no, that's about it. Thank you.
All right. Mooley, thanks a lot. Great to talk to you here at the Voice of College Football.
Great to talk to you as well. Have a good one.
All right. Our friend here at the Voice of College Football, Jackson Johnson. You want to listen to the Jacksonian, his personal podcast, also Alabama at the Voice of College Football, Crimson Tide Live with Jackson Johnson and his merry band of fellow panelists. So get the latest on Alabama. Interesting times there after the loss to Oklahoma, and an Iron Bowl that Kalen DeBoer better win, or else he is in a whole heap of trouble. Right, Jackson?
He sure is. And we know Auburn is going to be thinking about this game 100% on November 29th on ABC with Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and the puppy dog at Jordan Hare. They're going to be there having some fun calling that game. And that's going to be a wild ride. And, a fun fact I was thinking about today was, and it's not so fun for Alabama, but might be fun for everybody else, but 63 years ago, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets spoiled repeat national title hopes for the Alabama Crimson Tide on this very date. Just before they
Bobby Dodd, baby. Bobby Dodd.
Yep. Second to last year before they left the SEC to go be an FBS independent. Man, I want to see Alabama Georgia Tech be a playoff game so bad, but that's No Time for Another Day for sure. Because I mean, Georgia Tech's in our fight song, of course. Oh man, but you could also check out the magic that Matt Zemmett brings on USC at the Voice of College Football. USC Primetime Live with Crash Lit, Ethan Inman, and the magic that he writes on USC Trojans Wire and College Sports Bar. And let's help him get his Ets account back. His OG Ets account is at Matt Zemmett, but his temporary handle is Howard Beal, I believe.
Real Howard Beal. Yes,
Real
the guy
Howard
from Network. For older people who remember 1970s movies.
1976, the year to go to
I'm
the
mad
bowl.
as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore, which is what some people in the chat are basically saying to me right now.
Man, that was a great movie, man. Like that. Was
Yes, one of my faves.
Oh man,
Absolutely.
I love that. Love that movie and love Taxi
And
Driver.
it's still relevant today. And if you haven't seen Network, the 1976 movie with the character Howard Beal, like you watch it and you think, damn, like this is applicable today. All right. Back to football, Jackson.
Here we go. So James Franklin being hired by Virginia Tech is a humongous win for the program. Because I mean, he can snatch up top-notch recruits in Washington, D.C., and in the state of Maryland, and all the players that left Penn State over the firing over Franklin, he can just snatch them up, take them over to Virginia Tech. Now, I'm not expecting playoff wins or anything like that. I do think we'll see at least one or two ACC titles from James Franklin. I think he can get them closer to where Frank Beamer had them. I think happy days are here again in Blacksburg. And Lane Kiffin, I don't know if you saw this, Matt, but I saw this.
Oh, again, so much speculation about Florida right now, and Ole Miss wants to lock them up. Like that is a hot topic right now, right this moment.
So get this. Like before Black Friday, and this is what Ole Miss was giving them. They're giving them an ultimatum. Better make a decision before November 28th. Either Florida or LSU or us. I feel like when you give an ultimatum like that, it doesn't end well.
No.
It's like it's like in the movies or the TV show or like real life. When someone gives out an ultimatum, the ones that do that are the ones that end up crying into the pillow at bedtime.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you're Ole Miss and you're the Ole Miss athletic director and administration, like you could go to Atlanta for the first time. Ole Miss has never been to the SEC championship game. That would be a huge freaking deal. And you're about to go to the playoff for the first time. Again, huge freaking deal. Let it ride, man. Like, you know, if Lane Kiffin wants to go to Gainesville, but like you have a possible SEC championship game, playoff appearance, like enjoy this, Ole Miss. Like this doesn't come around every year. Like you're not Alabama in the sense of, you know, the annual expectation being to be playing for a national championship, be playing for an SEC championship. If you're Ole Miss, let Lane Kiffin breathe. Let him do his thing. Let him coach his team. Let him enjoy this. You know, Egg Bowl, possible SEC title game, playoff first round, could be a game at Vaught Hemingway Stadium at the Grove. Just enjoy this. You know, you're not Ohio State, and that's not meant as a criticism. It's just like you don't live in that same neighborhood. You don't live in that same penthouse, you know, or brownstone mansion. Okay, you know, you're the upper middle class. You're not, you know, the super wealthy, the ultra rich. You need to just enjoy this, and you need to back off Lane Kiffin because, like, you wanted this to get in the way of his game prep for a possible SEC title game. And you want him to perhaps say, you know, I'm done? You want to push him out? You want to make him feel unwelcome? I don't like the way Ole Miss is playing its cards here, Jackson.
Completely dumb. It's completely dumb. Like, it is a bad move to piss off a guy that is taking you on your best stretch since Johnny Vaught of the 1950s and the early 1960s in Oxford. And, you know, it's like, that's something Ole Miss needs to think about. The last time they won an SEC title was in 1963. Last time
Johnny
they
Vaught.
won. Huh?
Johnny Vaught.
Yep, Johnny Vaught. I mean, making that magic for the Ole Miss Rebels in black and white and in color TV for those that could afford it back in 1963 and in 1962.
Like that's when
Make
Don Draper was doing his thing.
Oh yeah, Don Draper, booyah, and you have Marshall Dillon ruling the TV sets, and Andy Taylor ruling the TV sets. But yeah, like
just for for the younger fans who don't know, look up Johnny Vaught. Like he belongs on the Mount Rushmore of SEC coaches with Saban, with the Bear, with Spurrier. Johnny Vaught, SEC icon. Look him up. You'll be impressed.
Oh man. Or if you need a Cliff Notes version, watch Saturdays in the South, or any Johnny.
That SEC documentary. Oh, magnificent! I rewatch it every year. It's so good. It's so good.
Man, we need like a documentary for the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the AC, like pretty much all the conferences.
Okay, Jackson, you're talking about one of my favorite things. I love revisiting this. 30 for 30, like the college football documentaries that used to air on Heisman night. The U, Pony Excess, just, these epic college football documentaries. And like, they haven't been doing that the past few years. I hate it. The 3 documentaries that 30 for 30 needs to do on college football in no particular order. 1, Spurrier versus Bowden. How have we not had a documentary on that rivalry, that era? Number 1. Number 2, a documentary on, remember, there was the 30 for 30, June 17, 1994, all the things that happened that day, the OJ White Bronco, Arnold Palmer playing his last match, New York Rangers Stanley Cup parade, the World Cup started in the United States, Game 5 of the NBA Finals, that one crazy day, one of ESPN's best 30 for 30s. There needs to be the college football equivalent, October 15, 2005. And you had USC Notre Dame, you had Louisville, West Virginia, you had Michigan, Penn State, all those epic games on one day, arguably the greatest regular season Saturday in college football history. That needs to be done. And then the other 30 for 30, Era versus McKay. Era Parsegian, John McKay, the 11 epic years, the very height of the USC Notre Dame rivalry, 1964 through 1974. Basically, every game had national championship significance for at least one of the 2 schools in that 11-year period. Like, how has 30 for 30, that franchise, fallen so much that it can't do those 3 college football documentaries? All right, you have the floor again, Jackson.
Well, if Disney can't do it, oh well, for them, Netflix can do it for us.
Or Hulu. Yes, somebody, please. Like, if anyone's watching here at the Voice of College Football, please, those are 3 prime documentaries you got to do.
There we go.
I'd add a 4th. Hayden Fry's 1985 Iowa coaching staff, arguably the greatest coaching staff ever assembled in the history of college football, because you had Bill Snyder, you had Barry Alvarez, you had Bob Stoops, like on and on and on. You go through Iowa's 85 coaching staff, arguably the greatest staff ever. I know Frank Broyles had some great staffs at Arkansas a decade earlier, but 85 Iowa, the greatest college football coaching staff ever. Another 30 for 30. I'm getting carried away, but it's late.
Oh, it's all right, man. It's all good. But yeah, like looking at like these title scenarios, like, and just like looking at for the Crimson Tide, and I talked about this earlier with Jeffrey and All Talk Sports and Trevion Ware, where I can't even believe that we need Tennessee to beat Florida in Gainesville. And Tennessee has not done that since 2003. They could beat Florida in Knoxville. They could beat them in Cambodia, but they can't beat them in Gainesville, Florida. And this their last chance to do so, because next year they do not play one another.
It just makes me think. Casey Clausen, what a special quarterback he was. He was able to slay the beast in Gainesville, but it's been a long time since then.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And looking at the Trojans against Oregon, playoff spot on CBS, and that's going to be a wild ride. And I'll tell you this, I hope we could see a USC Notre Dame playoff game in the first round. I'm not saying it'll happen, but I would love for it to happen. Crossing my fingers happen. I mean, we're not going to see a Texas Oklahoma first round playoff matchup, but
Well, Jackson, let me interrupt you. Now, first, I'm on record as saying I think USC loses to Oregon. I think USC doesn't make the playoff. But if USC gets in, what's going to be the first round matchup? USC Oklahoma.
Oh, that'll be cool.
The absolute bitter feud. Like, come on, you've got to do that. And of course, USC Notre Dame, that's a rematch. So USC Oklahoma, oh my goodness, that perfection, right? And I say that not as a USC guy, just as a college football follower. Come on. Lincoln Riley against Oklahoma in the playoff. Oh my God.
Venables and Lincoln Riley going against one. That's pretty. You got me tempted.
USC has to, of course, beat Oregon. Anyway, but that's the matchup if USC gets in.
Oh, you're getting me tempted thinking about this. Like Lincoln Riley versus Brent Venables or revenge. The revenge storyline or the USC Oklahoma feud. Which do I choose? This is so...
You see, USC Notre Dame, they already played. So USC Oklahoma makes so much more sense for a first round matchup.
I'd want the revenge, but that's just me. Like if I'm on that roster, I'm like, let me get at Notre Dame again. Let me at him. Let me at him.
Sure. But like remember 2006? Like that's part of why Michigan did not play Ohio State. There was just a pushback against the idea of, well, you play in late November and then we're just going to throw you back into the BCS national championship game. Like that played a role in Florida playing Ohio State instead of Michigan in the 2006 season's BCS championship game played in January of 2007 in Glendale. So like, I don't like the precedent of a rematch in the first round, but of course you can always shape the bracket so that they can have a rematch in the quarterfinals. See, that makes sense because you can still have a rematch, but you don't put it first up.
Agreed. But yeah, it's like it's just kind of getting me tempted. Like I'm just tempted just looking at all these games.
We're all imagining the possible brackets and matchups. It's kind of like the NCAA tournament, only better.
Oh yeah. But it's like looking at like Oregon's resume, it's like you would think Oklahoma State would be something to be impressed by most years, but not this year.
Not this year. And not Penn State. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just terrible. Like, it's a terrible resume. I mean, you can't brag about being Northwestern. Oh yeah, it was on bid noon kickoff, but really, that's like your callback. It was all bid noon kickoff. You can't hold on to that. You should.
So this is why Oregon's not obviously out. Oregon's not clearly out with a loss, but you don't want to chance it, Ducks. You want to take care of business against USC, and I do think the Ducks will take care of business against USC.
Oh man, I hear the dog barking. He's having some fun. I don't think. You got muted, Matt.
My dogs hope that USC is a live dog barking as a 10.5-point dog up in Eugene.
Oh man, I got a feeling he does not like Oregon. He is not too happy with them.
Anything else, Jackson?
Oh, that's about all for tonight. Let's get the voice of college football main YouTube right here to 50,000 subs. Check out the late show, 9 p.m. through 10 p.m. Central Time. I believe it's 7 p.m. Pacific Time, correct? Or did I get my hours?
Yep. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific.
There we go. Yeah, because I got to make sure I'm getting my time zones correct. And tomorrow night, you can check out the magic from Matt Zimick, Ethan Emmett, and Crashlet Collier.
And Mark Rogers' playoff reaction show right after the playoff rankings are revealed. So you want to go for that. And a reminder, check out Mark Rogers' top 25 that makes sense. Again, the industry standard, the gold standard. That's why we love Mark Rogers. He gets it right with the top 25 because he's doing it every week. He's not doing it according to what the sports books say. He's not doing it by, who would win on a neutral field. It's what have you done? What have you achieved? Who have you beaten? How well, you have done it. Mark Rogers Top 25 that makes sense. The gold standard here at the Voice of College Football. Jackson, tell us what you have going on at your shows. You get the chance to promote what you're doing.
Well, I've got Matthew Lennox coming up on a Jacksonian episode, and then I've got Mike Debate from Patriots on Sports Illustrated coming up as well. Well, and this time, it's not about how terrible the Patriots are. It's about how awesome the Patriots are this season. And, of course, we've got some magic on Alabama Primetime Live tomorrow night as we live react to where Alabama's going to be ranked. And we go over some recruiting updates. Trevion and myself are going to be taking you through a wild ride at 7 p.m. Central Time, instead of it being 6 p.m. Central Time. We didn't usually have it at the usual time, 6 p.m. Central, so we decided we're moving it down, just kind of waited out for Kentucky, Michigan State, so we can go over our rankings with all of you. And we've got it all right here. And Lucas Hill and I are making some magic as well on SEC at the Voice of College Football. Now on Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, discussing our takes on the SEC with all of you. And let me tell you something, folks, you're going to be in for a wild ride. And for more updates, what I've got going on SEC at the Voice of College Football, the Jacksonian, Alabama at the Voice of College Football, my appearances on Locked On West Virginia, Mountaineer Paul for Jackson's World College Football, and on the Paul Feinbaum Show, however long that's going to last. Check me out on Jacksonville CFB on /Twitter and on Jackson Johnson 543908 on Instagram and Threads.
Jackson Johnson, the hardest working man in college football. If there's something to talk about, he's talking about it at his various shows in his various media platforms. All right, closing it down. Hey, it's been 2 hours of really fun college football discussion. Wanted to take all our calls, wanted to get everybody's voices heard. Thanks to Dave Valensky. Thanks to Michigander 1212. Thanks to Adam Lamparello for the generous super chat contributions. You all rock. And keep supporting Mark Rogers' show. He'll be back here for the post rankings reveal. And of course, normally you catch him 6 nights a week, Mondays through Saturdays, 10 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. in the West, here at the Voice of College Football. One more reminder as well, vocfb.com/shop. Get a cap, get a shirt, get a coffee mug, get a tumbler. The purchases you make of snappy VOCFB branded products helps the Voice of College Football. Like, subscribe, share on YouTube, and for all our team shows, including Jackson's over at Alabama, keep those super chat donations coming. Jackson needs to eat. Jackson needs to pay the bills just as long as everybody else does. So thank you for your support here at the Voice of College Football. Follow Mark Rogers. Watch his rankings analysis reaction show after the rankings Tuesday night as we get closer to Selection Sunday. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching here at the Voice of College.